did years ago. They have to work late oftentimes, especially if they're white collar workers. They end up working extra hours, or a special thing happens and they have to stay late after work. And that's a problem that you have to work around. How important is it to have the family together for dinner, as opposed to having a meal on time that the children can count on? And that's something that you have to work with. And it is one that makes it more difficult. Have a weekly schedule. Not a tight schedule, but know that Friday is play date day, or field trip day, or whatever, or Wednesday. Some people do it Wednesday. They do their homeschooling and stay home on Monday and Tuesday and Thursday and Friday, and have Wednesday as the day that they get together with people. Whatever works for you, set it up that way. Now, playing with your children is another thing that is worth thinking about in today's world. One of the things that I get as a question very, very often is, why won't my child play by himself? He needs me to play with him all the time and I'm exhausted. These are usually people with 2- and 3-year-olds. And as I observe these parents, usually mothers, I see that they're really devoted parents, and they've read everything there is to read about child care and child development and psychology, and are trying desperately to apply all of it, even though some of it may disagree with others of it. And they're usually mothers who've given up a full-time career to stay home with their children, given up something that was very meaningful and probably remunerative as well, to stay home with their children, to oftentimes ridicule from the outside world. And so they feel as if they have to work as hard at this mothering job as they did at their high-powered career, and in order to justify the fact that they're home with them. So they carry their child around with them a good portion of the time and interact with the child every waking minute. And a lot of that comes from a book called The Continuum Concept by Jean Liedloff. And even she has written articles about how she's been misinterpreted. Carrying your baby around, and she based this on Yukana culture that she observed. She's an anthropologist. And she found that these children were really very well adjusted because they were either in contact with a parent being carried or by an older sibling or somebody else in the little village. But in this Yukana culture that she was talking about, they weren't interacting with the child. The child was riding around on this person, observing the work that the person did, but the person wasn't talking to the child or interacting with them. They were going about their business of the day, which is very different than carrying your baby around and talking to it all the time and playing with it and cooing at it and all of that. Because when you do that, the child thinks, oh, that's what adults do. They coo and play with me. When in reality, what adults do is their work, whatever that is. And as a full-time mom at home with a refrigerator and a stove and a washer and a dryer and a dishwasher, oftentimes, you don't have much work to do, or you think you don't. So you have to make something to do. You have to make up handwork. Make up cooking. Start making bread. Start making more meals from scratch. Those kinds of things, because those are the only kinds of work that a child can observe and understand. And you'll find that if you're if you're cooking or making something and your child can see it, you won't need to play with him. But if the minute you get on the telephone, or on the computer, or get out a book, they act up and demand your attention. So the adult work that you have to be doing has to be something that's comprehensible to the child. And it was very easy for our ancestors. You know, they had to go out and milk the cow, they had to bring the milk in, they had to skim the cream off, they had to take it down into the cellar to chill it. They spun and wove and did all those kinds of things all day, and there was no time to play with the child. It was very obvious that there was no time to play with the child. Food, clothing, and shelter was a full-time job, and the child got to see that. Now we have to artificially set it up and, you know, develop things that keep us doing adult type work that the child can observe.
I love the example in the book that she gave of the father who had the inspiration to build a playpen, replaced the child in it, and the child actually burst into tears, and he was happy enough to destroy his creation.
Yeah, and that shows you. I mean, they really like contact with you, but in order to grow up to be an adult human being, which is the goal, they have to see what adults do. And so the demand that the child is screaming for, the attention that he's screaming for, what he's asking for is the opposite of what you think. You think he's demanding attention, but in reality he's demanding that you get a life to show him what it is. And so you go round and round with this screaming child, giving him more attention when that's not what he wants at all. He wants you to be doing something interesting that he can watch. And he just keeps demanding and demanding, and you keep misunderstanding and misunderstanding until you finally realize what he wants, and then you can usually find out. And because the child needs to see life in order to imitate it. And oftentimes, as I mentioned earlier, you'll discover some talent, spinning, weaving. Melissa's been making these wonderful dolls and toys that will, you know, really feed your own soul while you're doing something that your children can observe and learn from. Going through and looking at your life is a very important part of the process. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And in the getting started with waldorf homeschooling, there's an exercise, and we'll do just parts of it here, but I did want to talk about it a little bit. Make a list of all the chores that you have to do in a week. Well, before that, think about what your goals and ideals are as a family, first of all. And give you a minute to get started on that anyway. And think of them in terms of physical, mental, and spiritual goals and ideals. What is it that you want to be that your child can imitate? And then get yourself a piece of paper, a big enough piece of paper. We won't do this now, but I'm going to tell you about it. Get yourself a big enough piece of paper so that you can divide it into 12 squares. And then that way you can see all the months of the year. And put into it all the things that you do, vacations that you will usually take at certain times of the year, festivals and holidays, birthdays that are important to you to celebrate. And not just the kind where you just send a card, but the kind where it's your own children and you need to make a birthday cake or have a party or something that is going to take a fair amount of time. So get all those things programmed into your months of the year. And if you know when your vacations and holidays are and when your husband goes on vacation, get those blocked in too. And all of these things you're not going to be able to do today or tomorrow even. You want to leave this someplace where you can add to it, you know, stick it on a kitchen cabinet or something, and as you think of something, add to it, so that you know where you stand as far as time is concerned throughout the year. And like everything else in Waldorf, we're going from the whole to the parts. We're starting with the year and moving into months, weeks, days, hours, that way. And then, we won't go through this now. This would be another workshop that we're not doing this time. But you'll want a list of the main lesson blocks that you would be covering if your child is of elementary school age, 1st through 8th grade. And then you tuck one of those into each month, except for the vacation summertime. And even though a main lesson block usually only lasts 3 weeks, I usually tell my client to take a month, because there's always going to be a birthday or a grandmother visit or something that's going to slow you down a bit. And until 7th and 8th grade, you can get all the main lesson blocks in one a month without a problem. And then you can, when you have those, you can put them in terms of times of the year, like you wouldn't put gardening in January here. And we wouldn't put it in January where I live either, for very obvious opposite reasons. But you put in what you can do at the time of year, keeping the climate in your mind. And then take another piece of paper and block out a weekly schedule. And you can have 7 columns with morning, afternoon, and evening in it. And block out what days you're gonna have a formal time, and what days you want. Day or days you want time with Dad on the weekend, an extra day during the week to do something else, whatever. And then, I'm just helping you set this up. We're not going to be able to complete the whole thing, but it'll give you a setup for doing it. And then make a list, maybe on the back of that weekly schedule, of all the chores that you have to do in a week. And let's brainstorm some of those. Bill paying, shout it out.
Washing.
Washing,
Gardening.
gardening,
dishes,
shopping,
gardening,
gardening,
Socialising.
socializing,
feeding lizards, pets,
Work.
pet care,
exercise.
exercise, meditation. Some of them may not be chores, some of them may be things that you really need to do. And you really need time for yourself. Schedule it. You know, if you need to get out of the house to go see a movie once a month or whatever, do it. You know, include things that feed your soul, because as a stay-at-home mom, you have a 24-hour day job. You often get interrupted in the middle of the night, and your sleep gets interrupted. And, you know, what's the saying? Man works from sun to sun, women's work is never done, or something. Even in today's world, with all of our machines, you're on duty 24 hours a day. So, include in the chore chart keeping yourself mentally and emotionally healthy. Schedule time with your partner. Have dinner alone with candles or something once a week, if you can manage it.
It's very important.
Pardon me?
I said it's very important.
Yes, it is. I got divorced because I didn't do that. So, it's very important. So put down all of those things that you want to do on a weekly basis, whether they be things you have to do or things that are important and often get sloughed to the side because you're busy or you think you're busy. And be sure to include meditation and some reading.
And artistic pursuits.
Artistic pursuits. Dance, if that is important, or eurythmy, or painting, drawing, poetry, writing, whatever is important to you. And include lesson planning in there if you have children of the age where you need to do lesson planning. And then, I used to tell people to order catalogs, and if you aren't online, then you probably still want to do that. And if you are online, you can connect with a lot of different websites and look at where you can get supplies and help and read articles and that kind of thing.